All right, welcome to the Krug Show. Davante Adams is officially a free agent. The Krug Show brought to you by Pig and a Pickle. And of course, today we're in Scottsdale, Arizona, getting ready to go see the Giants and the Padres in Peoria. But we had to jump on and talk a little football. Davante Adams officially released today. We're going to talk about it next. It's the Krug Show in the desert. Kev alongside. Let it go. All right, welcome to the Krug Show. Normally I fire off the music, but I'm having a hard time with this today. It's really, it's not really. Here we go. Here we go. Oh, yeah. All the difference in the world. We're here in Arizona. We're brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out. They're in Emeryville. They're in Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out. And of course, our spring training trip also has been brought to you by our good friends at Claudaddy Arcades. And Claudaddy Arcades are one of our sponsors, sponsoring our trip to spring training and the Krug Show. We're having a good time down here, and the trip is made possible because of our friends at Claudaddy Arcades, the ultimate destination for claw machine gaming and prize play. And we'll talk more about them in a bit, as well as our other sponsors as well. And we're going to get into this. We're also brought to you by LearnKey Upskill Academy, and we'll talk more about both of them before we get out of here. But the big story, Davante Adams is a free agent, and immediately a lot of people are like, oh, should Davante come to the Niners? If he does that mean Rodgers is coming? What about the breakdown in negotiations between Purdy and the Niners? Is that possible? Would that mean that the Niners would have, an Aaron Rodgers situation? I don't think Rodgers is coming here, but that is one of Davante's possible homes to pair up with Rodgers at his next destination. But even though I like Davante Adams, he's got undeniable ball skills. He's a really, really solid wide receiver, even at this age, at this point in his career. He's just not a fit for what the 49ers, I think, are looking for. Kawakami had the latest note saying that the Niners, Kev, were looking for, they like the receivers. They like Tariq Owens and they're probably going to go receiver at some point in this draft. There's a number of veteran receivers in the free agent market. There are options there, and it sounds like they like what they have. Maybe that's just what they're putting out so they get the best deals possible and they throw people off their scent. We are in the lying season. They could go. The Teteroa McMillan could fall in their lap. Who knows? And then what? Do you pass on McMillan at 11? He's had an incredible career at Arizona. There's Luther Burden. There's others. But the Davante Adams thing, I just don't think he fits. I really don't. What do you think?
Yeah, well, I think this was a transaction a lot of us could have seen coming. Davante Adams, I think, signed a $120 million contract or $140 million contract with the Raiders, and kind of only lived up to it for a few years. Kind of Aaron Rodgers and him kind of begged their way to team up in New York, and it wasn't a great situation. I'm reading off Spot Track that the Jets are going to save or are freeing up $29.9 million of cap space with this release, and and it leaves an $8.3 million dead cap. So this one was pretty obvious. A lot of people could have seen this one coming. Now, in terms of the Niners situation, I don't really know. It depends. Davante Adams is obviously washed. I think there's a lot of people that reminisce on the last name on a jersey. A lot of these players, they have the name recognition, but what are they really? I don't think Davante Adams is a one, but he's a solid receiver. He's older. He might be a really solid two. You could look at Davante Adams similar to how you looked at Hopkins on the Chiefs. He can play a role on a team, but I don't think he can be the guy. And it just kind of depends what's his price. Hopkins a few years ago signed a 2-year, $26 million contract. Can you get Davante Adams at $13 million a year? That's a pretty reasonable number. Or are you going to get him at, does he want $20 million a year? Does he want $25 million a year? At that rate, I would say pass. But that's what it kind of comes down to. Now, Ian Rappaport's reporting right now that Adams is not necessarily looking for a link up with Aaron Rodgers. From what I've heard and from what Jeremy Fowler's reported, it seems like Adams wants to be on the West Coast. That's why there is speculation that he might come to the 49ers. I think he probably makes more sense in the Chargers. I could see the Chargers making a move for him. But I don't see a real world where the Niners would go after him unless it's a really cheap deal.
Played 14 games this year, 85 receptions, 8 touchdowns. He's got great ball skills. He'll absolutely, master of the back shoulder catch. He's really good at that route. He's a big possession guy. He's slightly better than possession probably in the Niners situation, but I'm not thinking that way. I got to be honest, and we'll talk more about this as we go, but I just don't think he's a fit. I don't think, at receiver, the number one thing is you got to complement, your receivers have to complement one another. And he doesn't, they already have, I think, a lot of what he does. They're hoping Pearsall's that. They're hoping, JJ fills that role. I think they're looking for like an Isaiah Bond, as a guy, an explosive, down the field, vertical, big time, big play guy to stretch the defense and make plays. And I could see them going for Bond. What's Kyle Shanahan? He's a former Texas wide receiver. What's Bond? He was a guy who left Alabama to go to Texas. It
just doesn't make a lot of sense, Dad. Like we just heard John Lynch say that we want to get younger. We want to get younger. We want to get cheaper. This would be the exact opposite of that. You would be getting older and you'd be getting slower. Just look at Adam's season last year. If looking at some of the advanced statistics, he lined up out wide the least amount in his career. So he's playing a little bit more of that slot position because he's not really a true alpha anymore. His average depth of target was the second lowest of his career at 9.1 yards. He's not really the same deep threat that he once was. He's a diminished player. Again, he's old. He's older. It's just like people get enamored with a name on a jersey. He still can be a solid player. He might be a good solid 2, borderline 1 maybe, but he's really a diminished player. You're not getting Davante Adams of the Green Bay Packers in 2019. You're getting a guy who's a little bit worse, and it's razor thin margins in the NFL. So you're going to get a guy who at the very least is on the downward spiral and he wants a lot of money. You're not getting younger. You're getting older. That's the truth.
In that year that you're talking about, that 2019 or 2020 season, 18 touchdowns for Davante playing for Green Bay. And he had it, 3 years in a row, 18, then 11 the next year, then 14 the next year. He hasn't had double-digit touchdowns in 4 years. So
he had double-digit drops. He had double-digit drops last year. He had that second highest drop rate of his entire career. Like I said, he lined up in the slot more than ever. Maybe that's a scheme thing, or maybe that's just because he doesn't really work as well on the outside. It just wasn't as good of a year for him, and he was, paired up with his guy Aaron Rodgers. So, I think one of the more iconic photos from the entire season was when Aaron Rodgers went on Pat McAfee and Davante Adams comes into the frame, and they kind of take this weird, or they kind of like pose together, like peace, like what's up, like this is the squad, like we're together. And from after that picture, it was just downwards for the Jets. It only got worse, and it couldn't have gotten worse. So,
was pretty bad. It's been pretty bad there for a while.
I feel bad for Jets fans.
Yeah, exactly. They're JETS, it's like, it should be LOSE, lose. Anyway,
but before we get off this topic, like I see the value in a guy like Adams. He's a veteran. He's a solid player. I know I just gave some statistics why he's getting worse. We're talking about worse from one of the best receivers in the NFL. He's still a solid receiver, but does that not contradict what you've been selling us this entire offseason, which is we don't want to spend a ton of cash for something that we don't need. We want to get younger. We want to get cheaper. Is that not the exact opposite? And if that's the case, if they truly do believe that, I don't see a situation where the 49ers would be going after Adams.
It's one of those things where the Niners fit what Adams is looking for, but Adams doesn't fit what the Niners are looking for. And it's really just as simple as that. I think he'll wind up probably with the Chargers. That would be my guess. And that's the team that he should play for, is the Chargers. They're looking for a receiver. They have Ladd McConkey, who's had a good rookie year, and he kind of fits because Ladd McConkey's kind of fast, and this guy's more of the he's more of the chain mover continuity piece that he'll make Herbert a much better player. Davante would be good here. I'm not saying he wouldn't be good here. He'd be good here, especially since you're not going to have Ayuk for much of the year. He would be a good replacement, but that's not the direction they're going. They're going in a different direction. I think really, to me, if we're going to transition from this topic into our, other topics, I'll tell you, I think you got to focus on two things if you're the 49ers in this upcoming draft. And that is just bulldozing blockers up front, just watching more of Armand Membu from Missouri. Here's the Rappaport tweet Kev's got up.
Yeah, just before we move on, I just want to, this was the tweet. He just basically said, my understanding is the pull of being on the West Coast is very real.
Yeah.
It's kind of a weird sentence. But yeah, so he's from Fresno, right? Or he at least went to school at Fresno, right? With Derek Carr.
Right.
Yeah. So West Coast guy. Can't blame him. Can't blame him.
We're on the West Coast.
We're a little biased here on the Krug Show with the West Coast. We have a little bit of a West Coast bias, so we can't really blame him for that.
West Coast bias. What can we say? He wants to be on the West Coast. He's a good player. He just doesn't fit where the Niners are going. I think they need explosive players, whether they be free agents or draft picks. You got to get explosive, man. You got to get if you're not, what do you really miss with? Kittle's a good player. I think Cowing and Pearsall. These guys can be good players. What do you really miss when Debo at the top of his game, or a healthy Ayuk? It's that dynamic down the field weapon that can make the big play. And to me, that's why a guy like Isaiah Bond, I also like Dante Thornton a lot from Tennessee in day 3 of the draft, but Isaiah Bond, on day 2 would be a target of mine if I were the 49ers. I know they've got other needs. Some people want to see them go D tackle, offensive tackle, and then, more defensive tackles. And there's great depth at defensive tackle. And we'll see. There's some bulldozer blockers though in this draft. When you look at guys like Tyler Booker and Armand Membu and Anthony Belton and Willie Lampkin and these guys will blow you off the ball, and the Niners have to be able to run the ball inside the 5. If they want to compete for a Super Bowl, you got to start with the basics, and the basics are, can you run the ball inside the 5-yard line when you need to run the ball? Because the best teams in pro football are doing that. If you're looking for common denominators of these teams that made it to the Final Four, they could convert. They could convert on third down. So you do it with speed and you do it with power. And then I think the other theme is it's bulldozing blocking and speed at wide receiver, and specifically speed at linebacker. If there's one area looking at this draft, and obviously the draft's not till late April, but there's one area that I think it's just, could it be really deep with some really intriguing players that could be incredible value? It's at linebacker. If you can project some of the smaller players who are also really productive tacklers into the next level, and the guys that stand out, there's a bunch of them here, but Eugene Asante from Auburn, he's just the perfect second level player for the the modern NFL. David Benda from Texas. Chandler Martin was one of my favorite players from Memphis, who just very productive player. Nick Martin from Oklahoma State and Demetrius Knight from South Carolina. Those 5 guys all run like the wind. They're not the biggest guys, but they pile up tons of tackles and they dominate that second level. And I think that is the kind of the theme. If you're looking to get back and try to run with the Eagles and the Chiefs and all the best teams, how do the Niners do this? How do they get back up? Where were they a few years ago, and where aren't they right now? They need to be more dynamic speed-wise, and especially at linebacker. I mean, this team had young Dre Greenlaw, young Fred Warner, and Azeez Al-Shaair. They flew around. They made all kinds of tackles. They covered all kinds of second-level space. They took away the flats. They just snuffed teams out. And now Warner's older. Greenlaw's been hurt. You know, who am I thinking of? The burner from TCU. What is his name?
D. Winters.
D. Winters. I always forget his name. D. Winters flies. So he could fit in this category for sure. But they need second level defenders who can break down in space, make tackles, and snuff teams out. That's how they're going to get back on top on defense. If you're Robert Saleh, find the Jamie and Sherwoods. He went to the Jets. They found Jamie and Sherwood. They need to find themselves some Jamie and Sherwoods, guys who are super fast, super undersized, need to be covered up so you can get them in the mid rounds. All those guys, Asante, Benda, Chandler Martin, Nick Martin, Demetrius Knight. I think Knight's the highest projected guy. He may go in the second or third round, but the other guys are all day 3 projected guys. So we're talking about the 4th round or later. There's going to be a run there right around 100, 150 in the draft overall on these speedy, fast, incredible linebackers. And to me, it's great value. So that's the direction I'd go.
I think there's been there's been a lot of mistakes in the 49ers drafting. There's been a lot of huge hits. I mean, Brock Purdy, some of the late round picks, Kittle, even Fred Warner in the 3rd round. I think some of the recent, struggles can be attributed to the fact that they've put a focus on some positions and haven't got anything out of that. They've put a lot of focus on drafting a tight end, and they draft Charlie Warner, they draft Braden Willis, they draft Cam Latu, and Warner was solid, but you let him walk. The other 2 didn't do much. You draft Jalen Graham, you draft D. Winters, and it's like they're solid. All these guys for the most part are solid players, but they haven't turned into much. Like it really just there isn't much there. Like D. Winters, like you said, he's quick, he can shoot gaps, but is he strong enough to get off blocks? Like I don't know. He made some big hits for sure, but he wasn't super effective. The guy they let walk to go to Philly, Oren Burks, was like the special team player of on the team. I mean, so it's like there's been some mistakes. So they definitely need to get better in the draft and just hitting on some of those picks. And I think, one way to do that is to trade players and get picks. So that's why I'm not really opposed to the Deebo Samuel trade. You got a 5th round pick for a guy that you probably could have just cut. So that's why that's worth your value. Back to the wide receiver thing for a sec. I agree. Like they need to the one thing they definitely need is they need to get faster. Like if you followed me on Twitter, shameless plug to my Twitter, at Kevin Krubs. I was a broken record during the Niners season last year.
What?
I was a broken record during the Niners season about the wide receiver separation. They just were not getting open, and I think all the advanced statistics said that. And people wanted to make arguments. Oh, well, it's when they're catching the ball, or it's like something like it's not at the point, it's not at the throw, it's at when they catch it, and like that's on the quarterback. And I'm just like, dude, are you watching the games? The guys aren't getting open. I mean, that's just the fact. There was obviously, if you get some tape and you pause it and say, hey, look, he was open right here. It's just, of course, you can always screenshot and be like, hey, he's open. But at the end of the day, they just weren't fast enough. I'm hoping that Ricky Pearsall can make more of an impact. He's a good route runner. Jawan Jennings is a great route runner, but he's slower, and that's the payoff when you draft a guy in the 7th round. Even though I don't necessarily think that they should draft a receiver in the 1st round of this draft, I think that they should consider drafting one in rounds 2, 3, and 4. I think that they need a player that can make an impact this season. They may feel comfortable rolling Brandon Ayuk out in the middle of the season, having Ricky Pearsall and Juwan Jennings step up in the beginning of the year. But, I feel confident in those guys, but I don't feel like that's, a Super Bowl caliber wide receiver room. I think you need at least another role-playing wide receiver. Like Cowing is great, but he didn't do much. How many catches did he have last year? 3, 2, 4? Like he didn't have very many catches last year. He's fast, but he's a little small. I think that you're better off drafting a guy in the second round, in like a Matthew Golden, a Jalen Newell, Ricky White, some of those guys who have speed, and can actually maybe translate some of that speed and agility to the next level.
Yeah. The speed thing is, you got to be able to catch the ball, right? So it's not just, guys who can run fast. It's not like, oh, well, just get the list of the fastest guys at the combine and those guys are the best receivers. But it just so happens that this year's fastest guy at the combine is a tremendous receiver. And he kind of showed it this year, and that's a Golden from Texas. Really intriguing player. I'll say this, though. I mean, the more I think of the 49ers, the more I think, you may want to just try to start early on with some power blockers. If we show let me show Kev's Twitter.
Oh, yeah. I can pull it up. So you're talking about Armand Membu. So
yeah, because I like to talk about Membu, but I don't, the workouts, it's like, okay, he worked out great. Check out the numbers, but it's about the tape, right? It's always comes back to the tape because there's guys that work out, but maybe can't play.
Here's Armand Membu against Shamar Stewart. Shamar Stewart being the guy that tested at the combine as being the fastest, biggest, most athletic defensive end, since they've started calculating that at the combine. It's at half speed.
He just engulfs him and buries him, leverages him, wide stance, power. Look at the balance, though. And yeah, I mean, you're talking about really, really athletic big man. Really athletic big man.
Yeah, I mean, I like Membu. I was put on to Membu pretty early from a friend of the show, Ethan Strauss. He's been a big Membu fan.
Strauss is on a Membu, huh? Strauss is a Membu.
Strauss likes Membu. He loves him. I won't even say like, he loves him.
He loves Membu.
He loves Membu. And if he sees this, he knows that I'm telling the truth here. But here's the thing. I think this might be a wild claim.
Yes.
And I'm not
wilder than Strauss loves Membu.
Wilder.
Okay.
I didn't play offensive line in high school when I played football. I'm obviously not an offensive line build, but I think there's a lot of false favorites in this offensive line class because, it's all about leverage and it's all about size and movement and being able to, because when you're an offensive lineman at the next level, you're going against the most athletic, biggest, fastest human beings you've ever seen in your entire life. That's what defensive ends are in the NFL. They are quite literally the strongest, fastest, twitchiest, big human beings you'll ever see. And when you're in college, you're facing against the similar types of people, but you're only facing, a few of the NFL caliber guys. And when you're in the NFL, you're facing those guys every single effing snap. And the best teams in the NFL have really good edge rushers. So at the end of the day, little things do matter. And that's why I always am tweeting about arm length with tackles. Arm length worries me because it's all about leverage. And if you look at the tackles at the next level, there's not that many tackles that have, even 33-inch arms that were good. If you have 32-inch arms with like Will Campbell, I don't know. His tape is amazing, but something worries me that he may, at the next level when he's facing good competition, they may be able to scheme around that and be like, hey, look, he doesn't have long arms. All you got to do is this, that, and the other. I know he's a great player, but something worries me. Something about his arm length worries me as a top 10 pick. And then all these other guys, Kelvin Banks, Membu, a lot of the other guys have 33-inch arms, and even 33 is pretty short. Usually you want to have 34 or longer. So there's definitely some concern with the arm length. And I think this offensive line class, specifically at tackle, may be a bunch of guards that are, cosplaying as tackles when they're really in the NFL. They're best at guard.
What about arm length for like guys like Emory Jones from LSU or Anthony Belton from NC State? I'd love to know because or Ursay from Minnesota.
Ursay's super long. He just might be too slow. He doesn't have good quickness. He's
I'll tell you
fast straight line, but
I'll tell you, after doing a deeper dive on all these offensive line prospects, there's not a lot to do late night in Arizona, especially though last night, Kev, we did we did have a nice dinner last night. We really did.
We did. Different point of view.
Different point of view. Maybe we can put a picture up? It's an amazing spot.
I don't have a picture.
Okay. Well, we'll put one up maybe tomorrow. But incredible spot, different point of view. Point Hilton, Tipitilla Cliffs above Arizona, amazing spot. But there's, you look at this group of linemen. To me, the arm length thing, it is a factor for tackles. The guy from William Mary has ridiculously long arms, and I believe Emory Jones.
Cross.
No, I guess let me see. I forget his name. He played at William and Mary. They list him as a guard. But I mean, Will Campbell, Kelvin Banks, Membu, Connerly, Josh Simmons, those are considered to be the top offensive tackles. And that's the question for the 49ers. One of the stories of the day is that Armand Membu, according to our friend Dane Brugler, and Brugler's latest mock draft, he's got Membu going number 4 overall in the draft after the combine workout. Talk about getting launched up the board because of the combine. He's goes from probably a guy who's mocked in the 20s to the 40s to, he's solid first round, back half of the first round, to now he's going 4th overall. That's crazy.
Here's a clip from our friend Brad Graham of. This is against, I think, is this Mikael Williams? Who's 13? He just throws him to the ground.
Yeah, I mean, the base, the power. Very powerful player.
There's a lot of good tape on Membu. He can move. I mean, here's Baldy has a breakdown. That's 2 minutes, but there's another one of him really running with it, and you can just see he can move, man.
Oh, look at this one. He just engulfs this guy. And look at the kick out too. He's solid.
Whoa, the music there.
But wide base.
That's against Smart Stewart. Strong. I mean, I don't know. What do you think? I mean, if the Niners drafted him at 11, are you happy with that? I feel like you have to be. I think the reason why he's shooting up the boards is there's 2 reasons for it. One, he worked out crazy. He ran the 40. He sounded like an animal when he was running. He was like screaming. But he looks natural. He moves naturally. He's 331, and it looks like he is 331. He's not putting on weight. Like he's just naturally that big. And I think the running kind of proves that he can move really well. He doesn't stumble over his feet. He can get his feet up. And he has requisite arm length. I think a lot of guys that we thought were going to be 34 plus, like Kelvin Banks and a few others, ended up being 33. So it's like, if you're picking from a class of guys that all have 33-inch arms, I think Membu might be your best bet. Especially with the movement ability, and especially in the Niners scheme. I mean, the Niners like their offensive linemen to move, and if this guy can move, I think he might be the right option, especially if you're looking offensive lineman.
Oh, he's a beast. He's a beast. The one thing I would say is if you could, it would be. I mean, if they're projecting him 4, there's no way that you could trade back most likely and get him. He's too hot. He's going to wind up going. You might be lucky he might fall into your lap, but if he's projected 4, one of the plans I was thinking, hey, trade back a few spots and take a guy like Membu. That would be great. But there's different ways to play it. I would say in the first round, go for greatness, man. To me, I was looking at the board last night. The the best, player on the board in most of these mock drafts where the Niners pick as far as truly best player, as far as this is a game of football and who makes tackles and who makes big plays. And do you watch the game? You can see the players who actually are not just workout warriors, right? Guys who are really the best players. Jedi Barron and Makuba for Texas were spectacular. So, I might want to trade back and take a guy like Jedi Barron to start it off. I mean, this guy's such a dominating player. To me, he's a lock to be a great NFL defensive back. And that's what do you need? You need great players. Then maybe you come back in round 2. I'll tell you the offensive lineman that I kind of like it. I mean, I like Membu, and I like the idea of Membu.
Here's a few. Here's some Membu snaps, by the way. Just saw this. I mean, this is some great tape.
I mean, look at this one right there. That's just look at that. Look at that.
And he's moving.
Oh, I know. No, the guy's beastly. He's really. I mean, he doesn't lunge. Yeah, he's really strong.
I mean, he's blocking on the run. He can just he's moving. He can move, man.
It's a big, powerful, natural athlete. This one's ridiculous. So that's like
you like that first one?
No, it's the one where he keeps driving the guy down. This one. Look at this. Oh, that's wrong. That is just wrong. If you're the defender, you're just like, oh, dude, bro, didn't you hear the whistle? I thought I heard the whistle.
Yeah, he definitely is the most exciting offensive lineman, I think, at this point.
I'll tell you, Will Campbell's a great player, though, and was a great player in the best conference. And what we're now going to take the best player in the best conference, who's 6'6", 325, and suddenly because his arm is a half inch shorter than we thought, now we're just be like, if Will Campbell is there for the Niners, that might be the break of all breaks. If the top offensive tackle falls to you because his arm length is less than ideal, I mean. You might want to roll the dice on the best offensive tackle in the game. But I mean, that's what I'm saying. Will Campbell, Membu. I like the idea. Tyler Booker. To me, Tyler Booker's a dominating road grader. I just think that he didn't work out well, so I think he could.
I mean, Campbell.
Second round. I was gonna say the guy I like, Kev, is Donovan Jackson. I watched a lot of Donovan Jackson last night, the guard from Ohio State, who's got really long arms, and he played at left tackle. And to me, if you could start the draft, with trade back, get more picks, get a great superstar DB like Jedi Barron, then come back in round 2 with like a Donovan Jackson, that could be really explosive.
100%. On Membu, I mean, first thing I was going to say is, him and Campbell played in the same conference, so I don't really care about. They're both SEC guys. They both played the same team, so they both played against great competition, and I think so. I mean, they're both good candidates. But to your point about Donovan Jackson, he was in my one and only so far mock draft. I had them drafting him either I think in the second round or the third round. He's a underrated beast, man. I kind of like this new tactic. Especially, Pooney last year was this case too. Take a tackle who may not be the perfect tackle, but had a solid tackle career, move him to guard. Tackle is so hard. I mean, it's like anyone who plays offensive line will tell you, tackle is the hardest. You're just out in space. You're on an island. Guard is easy, man. I mean, it's not easy, but you got help on both ends. So it's like, it's a lot easier. Donovan Jackson played left tackle for Ohio State, and they won the national championship with him at left tackle. He's a guard that has 34-inch arms. He can move. He can play tackle. He can play in space. You're telling me that guy's more fit to play guard? If he's more fit to play guard, he's going to be a beast, man. I mean, that guy was really, really solid at left tackle. I think he is for sure NFL floor solid at his floor, a solid guard in the NFL. Give me Donovan Jackson, man, all day.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, especially if you can get him. I think he's probably going to be a round 2 pick. So I mean, that would be the theme. If I were the 49ers, get as many power blockers as you can get. A Membu, a Donovan Jackson. these bulldozing type players. I like Anthony Belton in the 3rd round. I love Tyler Booker from Alabama. I just think he's just a destroyer. I mean, he's such a wide body. That guy's such a dominating blocker up front. I mean, Willie Lampkin is one of my favorite players. Even though he's 5'10", he's got ridiculous. He's got longer arms than guys that are 6'5", 6'6", and he just destroys people at the point. I love Marcus Ware from Montana State. I just feel like he's so balanced on all of his pass pro sets. I mean, he fires out those arms. He stays balanced. He's like a guy that's played enough football on the edge that he can play almost any spot. I think I like him at center in the NFL. But I love Marcus Ware, the way he looked in the drills before the All-Star game. I mean, just really, really solid arm length, balance, tough, doesn't lunge, keeps his base, knows exactly what he's doing, knows his opponent. I mean, that guy's going to be a steal. That's a late round guy. So I was looking for that guard, though, from William and Mary that I told you.
Isn't his name something Cross? It's like how
no, I think
Cross.
It's Grant, I think.
I'll tell you one name. I'll give you one name that that's pretty interesting, or not pretty interesting. I don't like, and this is the player that might be mock drafted the Niners the most from NFL, not insiders, but like people that do NFL mock drafts for NFL Network. That's the cornerback Will Johnson. I think he's a solid player, but I don't like Will Johnson at 11. Maybe I'll eat my words and he'll be an amazing corner, but I think a lot of the intrigue with Will Johnson comes from his, he's a really good interceptor. He gets a lot of interceptions, and that's important, but I don't know. He doesn't give me the vibes of like cornerback one, like this is a next future of your franchise cornerback, lockdown, top, like Jalen Ramsey type player. He gives me more like solid player, but not special. He lined up against Marvin Harrison last year, and he had a decent day. He got 1 pick on the first pass. He picked off McCord, but he allowed a few big receptions to Harrison. So it's just like, I don't know. I just don't see, he may be a good player, but I don't see special out of him. And I would be really disappointed if they went with the corner from Michigan with their first pick.
I like the other corners better, to be completely honest. I mean, Travis Hunter there's only one Travis Hunter. He's obviously the number 1 corner, but
right.
Jahdae Barron, I like him more than I like Will Johnson. I like Maxwell Hairston from Kentucky a lot more. I like the East Carolina kid, Revel, Siobhan Revel. I like him quite a bit. I like Notre Dame's Benjamin Morrison. I love Trey Amos from Ole Miss, and I love Denzel Burke from Ohio State. I think Denzel Burke is going to be one of the, Ohio State produces a lot of really good corners, but Denzel Burke has got great explosive traits, but balance, and he's very competitive. To me, Denzel Burke's a very good NFL corner. And then there's 5th round corners like Noel Williams from Cal, who's a very productive interceptor. Kobe Bryant from Kansas is my favorite. He's just a total dog. He just will fight you. There's Zy Alexander from LSU. He's another guy, big-bodied corner who's got long arms and can really shut you down. The guy who's going to fall is Mello Dotson because he ran a bad 40 time, but he was good at Kansas. But there's other guys too. I mean,
I just think that like there's nothing wrong with being an interceptor of the football. Like that's important. You're gonna make highlights. You're gonna be, Will Johnson, whoever team he drafts him, even if it's the Niners, if he gets an interception week 1, it's gonna be like, look at this guy, like he's great, he's this or that. But man, dude, it's just like when I think about drafting a corner in the top 10 or top 15, I think about a guy who's man-to-man lockdown. Like you're not even throwing the ball to him. Like he's not even going to get an interception because you can't even throw the ball his way. That's what I think of when I think of an alpha cornerback that should be drafted in the top 15. Interceptions are great. If you make a play on the ball, that's great. But I would argue that's not important as a corner. I'd say the most important thing is playing your man. I mean, obviously playing the ball is extremely important, but like, I don't need you to catch it. I just need you to just not let the guy that you're guarding catch the ball. Like, that's your job. That's your job first. Catching the ball.
I mean, I think Will Johnson's going to go that high just because he's kind of a clean prospect. I mean, but he was hurt this year. But he's this guy was the MVP of the national championship game. Lots of people watched that. I think a lot of people went off that and kind of put him in a high ranking, and then he missed a bunch of games. But he's a big time talent. I don't have anything negative to say about his game. I think he's just a little thin, maybe, but I just like these other guys better. I just like Jedi Barron better. I like Harrison better. I love the way Darian Porter, the Iowa State corner, has worked out. So, it's gonna be an interesting draft. But to me, if the Niners could get speed at linebacker and maybe some speed either at free agency at wide receiver. I've thrown out Tutu Atwell, Rondale Moore, guys like that, Darius Slayton, Elijah Moore would be a great signing. But in the draft, the two guys, Isaiah Bond from Texas, and it's funny. I was going to say great minds think alike, but I hate people who say that. But our friend Kyle Posey wrote an article about this, how the Niners ought to go after Isaiah Bond. And I kind of agree with him. I really do believe that the 49ers need that dynamic player, but not somebody who's super fragile. I mean, it's like they got a guy who could run in Jacob Cowing, but he's 170 pounds. It's like 3 years from now or 2 years from now, let's say after this season, let's say, he'll get a little stronger, he'll get a little bigger, but I mean, he can't be a full-time guy at that size. Where you go after an Isaiah Bond, and I think the value on Bond is interesting because he said he was going to run in the 4.2s, and then he ran 4.4, and so a lot of people were like, I guess he ran 4.39. He ran 4.39 in the 40, and a lot of people thought it was disappointing because he was like, I'm going to run a 4.20. It's like, but you know what? I love the confidence. And to me, this guy, this is what he said about, and this is what he says. He says, what separates me from the rest of the draft class is the sheer speed. There's not a receiver that has the speed and capabilities that I have. It's not just speed. I'm a complete wide receiver. I have amazing routes. If you watch the tape, you'll see that. I just like the confidence, man. I like the confidence, and I love this guy was a sprinter. This guy was a hurdler, I believe, or 200 meters, 100 meters sprinter. This guy's got a track background. I think Isaiah Bond, it's funny, Mel Kiper's got him as the 10th wide receiver in the class. Yeah, the 10th wide receiver in the class. He's listed anywhere from 61 to 111 on the big board. So you can get this guy. If somehow you could trade back and get an extra pick in the third round, this would be a guy that I would target because I think he's going to be a better pro than he was this year. And people are going to be like, oh yeah, how come Bond wasn't drafted earlier? It's like, dude, this guy is fast. This guy plays fast. This guy makes plays down the field. I think Isaiah Bond might be a great third round pick. I'm
not a fan of Bond. Nope.
No, you like Golden.
You did a whole soliloquy there of why you like Bond. Not in the third round, man. If Bond's there in the fifth, you take him. But it's just like I don't know. I watched a lot of Texas games. Bond is a great athlete. He makes some really great catches, but he's a little undersized himself. He's 5'11", 180. He had some good games for sure, but he played his worst games against the best teams. Like he didn't have good games against Ohio State, Georgia, Arizona, Texas A&M even to end their season. So I don't know. There's something about I value playing good against the best teams, and I felt like that's where Isaiah Bond and Matthew Golden separated themselves. Golden turned it up a notch. Bond turned it down.
Well, yeah, but he was the guy that caught the game-winning touchdown pass in the Iron Bowl. There is no bigger game for Alabama than Alabama-Auburn, and he made the game-winning touchdown catch in overtime in the corner of the end zone and got both feet down. So I mean, He is a big play guy. He definitely did not get to Texas, and it definitely was not a good year for Isaiah Bond. And you're probably right. You probably could get him closer to the 5th round, but I'll split the difference and say get him in the 4th if he's there, because that will be great value at that point in the draft. Another big trade today. The Rams traded Jonah Jackson to the Bears, and it's interesting to me because they got a 6th round pick, and our a guy, Slick Rick on X, was saying that the 49ers are shopping Javon Hargrave. Now, most of us assume that the Niners are going to cut Javon Hargrave. But you know what? If you think about it, if Hargrave's wanted to take some kind of a pay cut, even if the Niners can't afford him, I read an article the other day saying the Steelers, coming out of Pittsburgh, saying the Steelers would like to have him back at a reduced contract rate. Because they feel like he fits their scheme. He obviously had a really good year, his final year there. Who knows? I mean, could the Niners get a 6th round pick if Jonah Jackson can fetch a 6th round pick for the Rams? Because the Rams didn't want to pay his contract anymore. Can the Niners basically get the same for a guy like Hargrave? If they can, they should.
I'm trying to pull up over the cap here and see just at least what they say on a trade. If they traded him, it would be a $15 million cap loss, $24 million, almost $25 million in dead money. So, I mean, if they cut him post June 1st, they'd save $2 million against the cap. I don't know. It's one of those things where it's like, it depends how they want to do this. I guess they do have a lot of rolled over money from, having Purdy on the roster and not paying your quarterback for the last few years. So they have a big wad of cash, and the cap is a year-to-year thing where, if you save money from last year, it rolls over to this year. So they have a little bit of extra play money, and they may want to get some money off the books long-term so that they can secure Brock Purdy to an extension that is backloaded, and gives them more financial flexibility to sign players in the future. And maybe they're seeing this season, or at least this cap season, as a year to really just offload a lot of or accelerate a lot of the dead money and get draft picks. And I don't know. It's definitely an interesting. There's a lot of things going on here, Dad, and I think it's kind of interesting because there's the owner dynamic where Jed's. It's reported that Jed's not happy with how they spent a ton of cash last year and didn't get anything from it. They told the ownership. I mean, Kyle probably told ownership, we need Brandon Ayuk. We're this close from winning a Super Bowl. I need him. And then immediately regretted it. Right. So there's that factor where they don't want to spend a ton of cash this year, and they kind of want to reduce their expenditures for the future. And that, paired with Brock Purdy having a potentially huge contract extension, kind of puts them in the situation where the best foot forward may be let's trade players that we would otherwise cut and take a cap hit because we can, and get draft compensation, get younger through the draft, and kind of have a reset. That's a reset, man. That's how they reset the team. You get rid of your long-term liabilities, accelerate them to now because you can, get draft pick compensation, get more bites of the apple through the draft, get younger, and build around Brock Purdy. That's what I think after the last few days. That's my understanding of how the Niners are doing this.
Yeah. And it makes sense. But you know what? It also kind of portends, and we'll see, potentially a Brandon Ayuk trade, because what's going to make Ayuk traded? Somebody's going to have interest, but the price is going to have to come down. You see what I'm saying? I don't think the 49ers are going to get a high price, but how motivated are the 49ers to make a deal at any price? How motivated are the 49ers to shake off money? That's what it would be. They would, if they moved Ayuk, if they got somebody even at a loss, what's the lowest compensation you would take to save Jed a bunch of money and to hit the financial reset, as Lynch said? I mean, Lynch said it. He laid it out there. I mean, can we play the cut? I mean, it's an unbelievable.
I will play the cut, but
to
I
me,
almost
this
I,
is
I want
like
to share the screen first on this because
Okay.
this is from Schefter on Brandon Ayuk. Adam
Okay.
Schefter on 49ers wide receiver Brandon Ayuk. With the financial situation that the 49ers are in, which is an interesting way to say that, the financial situation that they're in. What situation? I mean, if you were just looking at the cap, they're doing fine, right? So that's interesting. With the financial situation that the 49ers are in, they're open to listening on just about anybody. If there's a team out there that is willing to take on the Brandon Ayuk contract, I'm sure they would listen. That's really, really interesting. So Schefter's saying, if someone's willing, and this is kind of what I've been saying and what I've been trying to convince you, Dad. I don't know if a team's willing to take on his contract, but the way that Schefter lays it out, man, it kind of seems like the Niners are willing to move on from Brandon Ayuk for not much, but it's dependent on the other team being willing to take on that money.
Right. No, and the question is, would you take on, is there a team out there that wants this player, doesn't need to contend this year because he's not going to be 100% this year, but a year from now, he might be back to 100%. And then you've got a receiver under contract. It would be a team that would probably need a receiver and has a hard time attracting receivers. And that's why the Patriots and Raiders, I think, do make a lot of sense. I really do. And the Raiders do have 3 6-round picks, and they have Michael Mayer.
But look, the reason why I'm skeptical, and I think a lot of people are skeptical, is because
of the money.
It's the
broken
money,
down body.
Right, exactly. And we're talking about humans with jobs here. A GM that trades for Brandon Ayuk and wastes $110 million of his owner's money and gets a player that is nothing to that caliber, and you give up something, and even in a worst case scenario, the Niners draft a great player with a 5th round pick. If it's a 5th round pick and they draft a great player, that might be a fireable offense for a GM. So it's going to take balls, man. Like, I don't think, even though it's like, oh, bro, it's Brandon Ayuk and you're giving up nothing, you're giving up $110 million. It's money, it's cash.
Of course, and your owner has to be on board. I mean, you don't go down this road without your owner being totally on board. Here's the deal: the guy this is the commitment. This is his normal price. This is the price because they're looking to offload him. What do you want to do? Somebody and it's really like, if you said to me, what are the odds that somebody will bite? I don't know what the price tag is. You know what I mean? The price tag, I've got I've got a broken down, brand new Bentley. What does somebody want to offer me? Well, I mean, what am I willing to take? It depends how bad I want to offload it. It depends. And what you just referenced, this tweet about the salary struggles. It's like the 49ers, they're obviously in a cash poor situation, largely because of the great players that they drafted, developed, extended. So Joe G says my volume's a little too low compared to yours, Kev. Maybe you should dial down a little bit, Kev.
Okay. But yeah, I mean, I think that let me turn on my audio a little bit. I think that it's really interesting if you look at the wording of this, because again, like this just confirms what Kawakami was saying and what Grant was kind of saying earlier last season. Credit to both of them for having the inside info. But it's just like, with the financial situation that the 49ers are in, they're open to listening on just about anybody. That's interesting. If you look at the cap, they're one of the highest cap number teams in the league. They have over $50 million in cap. If we've, for the last year or 2 years, we've only exclusively been talking about cap numbers, right? Oh, it's this cap, it's backloaded this, it's backloaded that, it's the best way to do it, yada, 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 which is partially true. But then no one, because it's impossible to know, no one's thinking about Jed's wallet, thinking about how every time they backload a contract, he's shelling out tons and tons of cash. So it's just interesting to hear the phrasing, with the financial situation that they're in. What are you talking about? If I was just looking at the cap, they're green, man. They're good. Everything looks amazing. Everything's, butterflies and rainbows. But like people have been saying now for a little bit, it's a cash situation where you gave Brandon Ayuk a lot of cash and a lot of long-term money. Yeah, it's an interesting thing coming from ownership, and I wonder how that's going to play out, because when you have your boss telling you got to do something, I mean, you got to do something, right?
Well, I mean, and it's not that they don't have cash, because they're about to give Brock Purdy $100 million himself, right?
Right.
So,
It's not that they don't have. It's not that they don't have it. It's that it's like there's some feeling that they don't want to keep giving it out or something like that, right?
well, they've spent. They're about ready to give him probably $100 million guaranteed. So they're just trying to offset that by shaking free of the players that are non-essential, and receivers making big bucks are non-essential in today's NFL. There's a lot of free agent receivers. There's a lot of now this particular draft, I don't think is stellar for wide receivers as much as it's been in previous years, but with so many teams running the spread, every year you're going to have lots and lots of wide receivers coming out of the college game. It's just the way it is. But the question is, what do you do? Because it's almost like the 49ers need to trade Ayuk more because he can't help them in what looks to be the biggest year of the regime's existence, because there's no question that Jed was willing to cut the check and do anything those guys said, if they said it was the right thing. And now, after they win 6 games, it's pretty clear that they've gotten called on the carpet, and there's been a belt tightening and a refocusing, and we're now prioritizing Jed's expenditures a little bit. We're going to be a little bit tighter with Jed's money, and we're probably going to try to help Jed out by getting off of Ayuk if they can. Now that's the question, if they can. But then the question is, the one thing is, it could be a non-story. They could be telling everybody. I mean, it's either a non-story and they've told everybody, you know what, we want a 1 and a 2 and this and that, or it's a freaking huge story and they've told everybody, give us a 7th round pick and he's yours.
And just take the contract.
Right. We don't know what the cost of this thing is. So.
Yeah, no, I think it's we're getting into interesting, very, very interesting time right now. Here's another one, just kind of related. This is by Coach Yak's Twitter. Matthew Berry, on what he's heard about the Brock Purdy contract negotiations while at the NFL Combine. They are working towards getting a deal done with Brock Purdy, but there's no guarantee on a long-term deal gets done this offseason. I hear both sides are still fairly far apart. That's not, hey man, if that's not a good thing to hear if you're a 49ers fan, that your franchise quarterback, you're far apart on a long-term deal. I mean, this cannot be a situation where it's a long holdout, or I don't even know what this would turn into, but I mean, you're not, not good news, man.
I do know what it would turn into. It would turn into another lost year. That's what it would turn into.
Right.
So,
I mean, I just think at the end of the day, I think, before last season, John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan were made men. Maybe not made men, but they were like, they had the reins in their hands. They had full trust from ownership to do what they want, whatever they needed to do to win, because they had been so successful without getting the Super Bowl, but they'd been successful. And then they kind of took control with the Brandon Ayuk situation, took control of a lot of other situations, and it just wasted a ton of money and got them worse. So I can kind of understand it, I guess, from Jet's perspective. But yeah, this is not if this is true, I mean, they could be far apart today and get a deal done tomorrow. But if this is true, it's not a good thing right now.
Well, I mean, they got plenty of time to get it done, but I mean, they made it seem like it was the two sides were, basically there was some, they obviously had traded some early numbers. So if they're that far apart, then I'd be a little surprised. But it's imperative that they get it done. I would say even a bad deal. Here's the rub, and this is what's going to make it so complicated. John Lynch is getting dragged a little bit because of I'm sure with ownership, because of the Ayuk contract, because of the clearly Bosa's side won in the Bosa deal. He's the highest paid guy for the second year in a row, non-quarterback, I believe. So, those deals, these are big expenditures. The Debo extension, if you believe Tim's reporting, it sounds like ownership may believe that they didn't get great deals on some of these deals. So in the midst of a belt tightening, you're going to try to get a long-term extension done with your quarterback, and your recent reputation is that you can't get things done on time, and it's like imperative that you get it done by, I would say by the draft, probably before the draft, whenever the OTAs start. And it makes you wonder when you look at the way they're going about this and the potential for the holdout and all the needs they have. Is this year ahead going to be they're back in the Super Bowl mix, or is that an unrealistic expectation at this point? Because the fans want to be back in the Super Bowl mix, and everybody's going to be, Super Bowl, Super Bowl, Super Bowl. But you know what? We're a long ways away from that. And I'm not talking about calendar time. I'm talking about roster talent. The Niners have all kinds of holes, and they're not going to get there with the snap of the fingers.
I mean, if they truly believe that, I think that there's probably some bigger moves they have to make. I still think that they're going to be trying to contend for a Super Bowl. I mean, there's too many old players on the roster you have Trent Williams potentially in his last year, maybe 2 years. I mean, George Kittle's an aging player. Fred's an aging player. They're trying to get Greenlaw back. I don't think you can really say this is a rebuild year. That's just my opinion. But we probably should get to some of these super chats, Dad.
All right, let's hit these super chats and we'll get out of here. We got this one from Nick Gianfrido, just saying, Nick, I am Nick Gianfrido. Nick, thank you. We now know that Nick Gianfrido is in the house. Thank you, Nick. Thomas Selman in the house says, trying to get younger and signing Davante Adams and Rodgers does not make sense. Pay Purdy, please, and get that wide receiver from TCU. That would be Savion Williams. We got this one from Claw Daddy Arcades, our sponsor today. Says, how did the Lynx treat you yesterday, LK? If we need to get younger, let's trade back a few spots from 11 and then pick up a third. Send the third to the Jets for Garrett Wilson. Ooh, throw in BA. I would do that in a heartbeat. Absolutely heartbeat. We played Orange Tree. I really enjoyed it. My son hit the ball really well at times. I hit the ball not that great off the start because I haven't played in a while. But when we got to the fourth hole, I warmed up. I started hitting some good drives. So it was a good day. It wasn't super hot. It was kind of a mild day yesterday, kind of an overcast day here in the valley, about 73, 74 degrees. So yeah, it was me and it wasn't Kev though. It was me and my younger son, Ben, that golfed. So yeah, it was a really, really good day. Really, really good day. We got this one from Joseph Ernberg, who says, Larry runs things behind the scenes. Sign DA. Larry, thank you. I don't know if I run things. I would say I don't, because otherwise I think I'd have a better parking spot. Claw Daddy Arcade says, LK, aside from the what does that say? Aside from the bats from Matos and Luciano, anything of note stand out to you? Anything that the average fan may overlooked on the radar? Love the locker intel. It's definitely a year where I think it's odd because they've got some young players that have hope, but they're not like super blue chippers. And they're looking to be more consistent. I think Luis Matos is going to have a bust out year. He hit one into, he turned on one. I asked Bob Melvin about him today. I should have gotten that cut ready for the stream too, but I asked Bob Melvin about him, And Melvin's like, hey, look, this guy's got a ton of talent. He's got a whole new framework of mindset after being great in Venezuela in the Winter League. And he's like, he just needs to be a little bit more patient. If he's a little bit more patient at the plate, he could have a huge year. I would say Matos and Luciano have bust out potential. The other guy, Landon Roop has adding a changeup. And if that guy gets a changeup, of any caliber, he's working on a changeup and a cutter. So Roop, who's got a big, 95-mile-an-hour fastball and a gigantic overhand curve, if he can add the cutter and the change, him and Mason Black might be factors in that rotation. Definitely could be factors in that rotation, I would say. Jake. What's up, Jake? What's going on, bro? He's got this one. He says, thoughts on grabbing Scatabo to replace Juice. The Niners, Kev, met with Scatabo. Scatabo, we were at the game in Scottsdale against the Angels, Giants Angels, and he's doing an ad on the scoreboard for
lifted trucks.
Lifted trucks, yeah. So, if you see a guy driving a lifted truck around the desert with lots of fans, that's Scatabo. He's a hero down here. He's a big-time player, man. I think the vibe, even if I don't think he's the perfect prospect, I would just draft him. He's too good. He's local. It's too good of a story. You need to replace Juice. He absolutely could. Maybe Scatabo and Garendo could be a really fun combination together. So I like it. That's another reason. I mean, there's guys like this that I don't think I would necessarily take over linemen or linebackers but if I could trade back with the idea, hey, let's get an extra pick or two, he's the kind of guy that I would use those extra picks on for sure.
Gosh, there's a lot of discussion right now on Twitter. All this Schefter stuff. It seems like Schefter he went on Pat McAfee and kind of made it seem like the Niners are. He said he used the word cap space. They don't have enough cap space to sign Brock Purdy or like money. Like, I don't know. I can't play the cut right now because it's TV, but we may have to talk about that later on your Raj stream because there's a lot of debate whether or not there's some speculation that the deal with Purdy might get done this offseason. So things are heating up in Niners land.
Yeah, if the Purdy deal doesn't get done, I mean, I don't know what to say. The whole thing could blow up. Joseph Ernberg says the Niners need to learn how to take an L and move on. Yeah, it's kind of true. Joseph Ernberg, Niners need to learn how to take an L and move on. Okay, wait. I hit the wrong one. Greetings from New Orleans. Happy Mardi Gras. Oh, man, I haven't gone to Mardi Gras. Thank you, Jimmy. We appreciate you. We're off to Peoria, Giants and Padres today, and we got our lotion. I'm looking forward to seeing this little ballpark. We'll stream tonight, Niners Nightly. Raj will be joining me for a live stream tonight. Should be a fun rest of the day, and we'll check you out. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle for being the title sponsor of the Krug Show. Thanks to our good friends, Claudaddy Arcades, and we were telling you about them before. Follow them on Instagram at claw_daddy_arcades, and you can find a location that are near you. He's got 3 locations in Southern California, plus spots in Fresno and Modesto. They got a new location coming in the Bay Area. They're bringing family-friendly entertainment right to Northern California. So Claudaddy's a great guy, and he is the sponsor of our spring training trip. Also, we're also brought to you by LearnKey Upskill Academy. And this live stream is sponsored by them. They're an online learning platform designed to get you job ready in 6 months or less, whether you're interested in IT or cybersecurity or marketing or another high demand field. They offer over 30 certification programs to help you, take that next step in your career. And for a lot of people, retrain yourself and get back into a different career. They've been in business for 37 years. They currently have over 200,000 students, and they're placing hundreds of people every year with jobs, real jobs that pay good money. And so if you're looking to redo, you don't love your job, you don't love your situation, you're looking to step it up and learn a new skill and make yourself a little bit more marketable and make a few more dollars, definitely check it out. LearnKey's Upskill Academy. Big fans of it, and it's helped a lot of people. And the links are in the description to both of our sponsors there as well. And thanks to Pig and a Pickle for being the title sponsor of the Krug Show. Kev, we're off to Peoria, the three of us. We're going to watch some baseball and see if we can get into some trouble. Another day in the desert. Looks like a nice day. Let's go do it. Kev, I'll give you the final thought of the show. Peace.
Final thought. Peace.
Final thought. Can you expand on that as I look for the outro bumper? There you go. Anything else you want to tell the fans, Kev? Maybe tell them about the store or the newsletter.
All the information for the shows and the links are in links in the description. If you want merch, anything else, social media, check it out.
All right, guys. Have a great day. We'll see you later at 6:00 tonight on The Leader, and then later tonight with Raj live streaming, talking about all the top Niner topics of the day. Until then, peace.
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared of. Careful, you gon' get exactly what you asked for. Careful.